Welcome to the English Boost podcast. You know that specific moment when you sit down at your kitchen table?
Oh, yeah, you've got the fresh cup of coffee going.
Exactly. A fresh cup of coffee, a completely blank document right in front of you, and you just start planning a trip.
It's this immense, almost intoxicating feeling of power.
It really is. It's like you're the architect of time itself. You plot out the 9:00 a.m. train,
Yeah.
the 10:15 artisan coffee shop, the museum visit at 11:30.
And it all looks so clean on paper, right? So incredibly logical.
Right. But then you step out your front door and suddenly the universe is looking at your little piece of paper and just laughing.
Absolutely laughing.
So today we're unpacking this really fascinating piece of source material. It's a transcript from an English learning audio series that breaks down a wildly chaotic day trip to London.
Yeah, but we aren't just doing a simple travelogue today.
No, not at all. Our mission is to kind of look under the hood of this story. We want to explore how mastering specific, really emotive vocabulary actually transforms a flat sequence of, travel mishaps into this brilliantly relatable story.
Which is such a great psychological case study for everyone listening. Because, every single one of us has been there.
Oh, totally. You have the perfect plan, and then the train infrastructure, the British weather, and your own misplaced confidence all decide to team up and destroy it.
Right. And what I find so compelling about this transcript is how it shows that the difference between a ruined day and a great story often comes down entirely to the linguistic framing, like how you describe the experience.
Exactly. So let's start with what the source calls the dangerous trap of overconfidence, which is essentially the engine of this entire disaster.
Yeah, it really sets the stage.
The travelers in this story, they start their morning armed with this incredibly sensible, polished schedule. They're hitting Westminster, Big Ben, the London Eye, Covent Garden.
They've got backup routes saved on their phones.
Yes. They even have cafe options written down in case one is closed. And in the transcript, they proudly describe themselves as enjoying the benefits of responsible adulthood.
Which, from a narrative standpoint, is just the ultimate red flag.
Oh, massive red flag.
Right, because the phrase responsible adulthood implies this fundamental misunderstanding of what travel actually is. They're using organization as, like, a shield against vulnerability.
But wait, isn't planning exactly how you prevent a trip from falling apart? I am definitely guilty of the spreadsheet mentality myself.
Oh, I think we all are.
I'd almost argue that the problem wasn't their itinerary. It was just that they didn't have a solid plan B when things went sideways.
Well, planning itself isn't the enemy here. The danger really lies in the psychological attachment to the plan. It's that illusion of control.
Right, that makes sense.
The transcript points out a very specific psychological shift that happens on these trips. The exact moment you look at your travel partner and declare out loud, we are organized, we are early, life is easy.
That is precisely when you invite the universe to teach you a lesson.
Exactly. Because you are so deeply anchored in the belief that you control the day, that the slightest deviation doesn't just feel like a logistical hiccup, it feels like a personal offense.
Which brings us to the first major vocabulary concept they use to describe the collapse, the word unexpectedly.
Oh, that's such a loaded word in this context.
It really is.
Yeah.
They use it to describe how quickly things unraveled. And it frames the travelers as victims of a malicious universe, rather than just, two people who built a really fragile plan.
Right. It's like building a magnificent 5-story house of cards right next to an open window.
Yes, you step back, you feel incredibly proud of your structural engineering, and then a breeze comes in.
And the collapse isn't actually unexpected at all. It is structurally inevitable.
That is a brilliant way to look at it. The word unexpectedly is doing so much heavy lifting to protect their egos.
Totally. They expected a smooth train ride. So when the station departure board suddenly takes total control of their lives, their reality just shatters.
And the physical environment of that train station is where the narrative shifts, right? From this warm internal hubris to just cold external chaos.
Yeah, the station becomes a battleground.
They arrive, and there's that tense morning commuter energy. You know the vibe. Everyone is moving quickly, holding overpriced coffee, aggressively pretending they aren't worried about the time.
And then the board updates. Their train is delayed.
Notice they say delayed, not canceled.
Right, because a cancellation provides closure. A delay provides purgatory.
Purgatory is exactly it. And there is this observation in the source that I found painfully funny because it is just so true.
The part about quiet panic?
Yes. They talk about engaging in quiet panic where they just stand there intensely staring at the digital departure board. Why do we do
That's
this?
so weird, right?
Like, what is the neurological misfire that makes humans naturally believe that aggressively making eye contact with an LED screen will personally encourage a massive locomotive to arrive faster?
Well, it really comes down to the psychology of agency.
Okay, unpack that a bit.
When you are stripped of all control, your brain desperately seeks a focal point to project your anxiety onto. Staring at the board feels like an action.
Oh, I see. It mimics productivity.
Exactly. You feel like you are doing something, like you're actively participating in the wait, even though you are completely and utterly powerless.
And that feeling of powerlessness is immediately weaponized by the environment when there's a sudden platform change.
Oh, the platform change. That's when things get real.
Right, the travelers describe experiencing this phenomenon of group confusion, which is just terrifying. You follow a moving crowd because it feels safe.
Yeah. From an evolutionary standpoint, if the herd suddenly runs left, you run left.
Keep yourself alive on the savannah.
Evolutionarily, yes. But in a modern transit hub, the herd is blind. What makes group confusion so terrifying is that realization halfway down the stairs that the people you are following are also completely lost.
The social contract of the station just breaks down entirely.
It does. And the word they use in the transcript to capture this exact moment is commotion.
I love that choice. Because a commotion isn't just a loud noise.
No, it implies a physical disruption.
Bags are dragging, people are spinning around, announcements are blaring, and it creates this intense sensory overload.
Which leads directly to their next emotional state. They describe becoming incredibly flustered.
And this is where the vocabulary choice becomes really precise, isn't it?
Yeah.
They didn't say they were annoyed or nervous.
Right. They chose flustered. And think about what happens neurologically when you are flustered. Your executive function essentially crashes.
Wow, really?
Yeah, the prefrontal cortex is overwhelmed by the commotion, so your brain literally starts glitching.
That explains why one of the travelers admits to going into what they call detective mode.
Oh, the ticket checking.
Yes, they check their digital ticket, then they check the screen, then they check the ticket again, suddenly trusting absolutely nothing.
Exactly. They are checking the ticket 3 times because their working memory has temporarily wiped itself. They are physically pantomiming the actions of a responsible traveler, but cognitively they are entirely disconnected from reality.
So they finally survive the platform Hunger Games, they get on the train, and the hits just keep coming.
It doesn't let up.
They're sitting in a crowded carriage in that specific kind of tired silence. And the source notes there is someone nearby loudly eating crisps with, quote, the confidence of someone who did not care who could hear them.
It's such a brilliant contrast.
It really is. This stranger is experiencing the ultimate freedom of not caring, while our travelers are sitting there mourning their pristine plan.
Which they describe as now being slightly injured.
Slightly injured, right. The psychological toll of that train ride is heavy.
It is, and by the time they step off the train in London, they use the word disoriented to describe their state.
Which is a fascinating choice here because they aren't geographically lost. Like they know they are in London.
Right, but their internal map is shattered.
It's cognitive lag. It's kind of like walking off a treadmill and feeling like the solid floor is suddenly moving underneath you.
That's a perfect analogy.
Your physical body has arrived in the overwhelming sensory environment of London. The smells, the noise, the sheer scale of the city. But your nervous system is still running at platform change speeds back at the departure board.
And that cognitive lag makes them highly vulnerable.
Right.
But they push through. They navigate out of the station, they look up, and they see Big Ben.
Right. It's historic. It's monumental. And for exactly 5 minutes, they experience the high of being triumphant, successful tourists.
They really think the worst is behind them.
5 fleeting minutes of glory. Until they meet the one adversary, no amount of responsible adulthood or spreadsheet planning can outrun.
The British weather.
The weather. It starts with just a few drops. And this triggers a universal human defense mechanism.
Dangerous optimism.
Oh, we all do this. We look at a darkening sky and say, oh, it'll pass. It's just a drizzle.
You literally try to legislate the weather with positive thinking.
Because acknowledging the rain means acknowledging the final collapse of the itinerary.
Exactly. So they pretend it's fine right up until the moment it becomes a steady, relentless downpour that fundamentally alters their physical reality.
And the word they use to describe the aftermath is crucial here, drenched.
Drenched carries so much more narrative weight than just saying, we got wet.
Totally. Wet is an inconvenience. Drenched means the environment has breached your defenses. You have lost the battle.
It is the total removal of agency. Being drenched carries a profound psychological weight because it forces you to confront your own physical vulnerability.
You aren't a master of time and space anymore. You are a cold mammal in wet clothes.
And the transcript highlights this tragically hilarious detail to really anchor that feeling.
Oh, the sock.
The sock. One of the travelers talks about feeling exactly one sock, specifically the left sock, slowly giving up and absorbing a puddle they just stepped in.
It is such a micro-level tragedy,
Yeah.
but as a storytelling device, it is devastatingly effective.
Because everyone listening to that story instantly feels the sensory misery of that left sock.
Yes, it is the physical manifestation of defeat.
It really is. The wet sock is the anchor pulling their morale underwater. And their immediate reaction is to attempt a tactical retreat. They decide to take a detour to find some cover.
But a detour requires navigation.
Which leads to the map app disaster.
Right, the most relatable mutiny in modern travel. They are standing under the tiny awning of a shop entrance trying to wipe the rainwater off their phone screen, but the map app is having a complete
A
breakdown.
little blue directional cone just keeps spinning around in circles.
I love this imagery so much. It is like relying on a digital guide that is actively panicking right alongside you. The technology is essentially saying, look, I don't know where we are either. Please stop tapping me.
So true. The environment is hostile, the technology has failed, and now we introduce the final lethal ingredient to this recipe for disaster: hunger. The source makes a brilliant observation about the human condition here. The combination of hunger and wet clothes threatens to alter even the kindest, most patient personalities.
Oh, the tension is palpable. You can feel the impending mood shift in the story. They are standing there, freezing wet, staring at a spinning phone screen, having a deeply serious debate about whether a packet of crisps could legally, morally count as lunch.
And this moment right here is the turning point of the entire narrative. What is so striking is how the source describes the death of their original plan.
Yeah, it wasn't an explosion.
No, it didn't end with a dramatic argument on the street.
The transcript says the plan just quietly walked away.
It simply ceased to exist while they were distracted by basic survival needs. And that brings them to the core realization of the day. They say, confidence is useful, but it is not waterproof.
That is a profound realization,
Well-
and it bridges perfectly into how they handle the fallout. They have hit rock bottom, right? The left sock is soaked, Covent Garden feels a million miles away, and they finally stop trying to force the perfect schedule into existence.
They stop fighting the chaos.
Exactly.
They abandon the mindset of resistance. Instead of asking, how do we get back on schedule, they ask a fundamentally different question.
What would make this day better right now?
Right.
I want to dig into that psychological pivot.
Okay.
Because it seems like officially letting go of the plan is the hardest part of the trip. But once you do it, does that surrender actually grant you permission to experience a place more authentically?
Oh, without a doubt. When you are blindly following a strict minute-by-minute itinerary, you aren't actually experiencing the city you traveled to.
What are you experiencing then?
You are only experiencing your own expectations of that city. You're in a state of performance, just checking off historical boxes to prove you had a good trip.
Wow, yeah.
The moment you abandon the schedule, you shift from performance to presence. You are finally forced to engage with the environment exactly as it is.
From performance to presence, that is a great way to frame it. And the vocabulary they use to describe their next move really reflects that shift.
Yeah, they decide to duck into a random, unsaved cafe to escape the rain.
And the transcript calls this decision impulsive.
Now, usually making an impulsive decision while you are freezing and flustered leads to a worse outcome.
Right, usually it's a mistake.
But here, they pair the impulse with a vital behavioral concept. They improvise. To improvise means to make decisions in the moment based purely on available resources without a script. By choosing to improvise, they reframe the entire narrative of the day.
So they transition from the mindset of our plan is ruined to this liberating mindset of the day is simply changing.
It's the ultimate survival mechanism and honestly a pretty profound life skill.
You stop trying to win a fist fight with the weather. They accepted defeat, but they accepted it while holding hot coffee.
There is dignity in that kind of defeat.
Truly. The image the source paints is incredibly cinematic too. They're sitting in this random cafe, their sleeves are wet, they're looking out through the condensation on the window, watching people with umbrellas hurry by.
And they have this quiet epiphany.
Yeah, that it wasn't the famous, highly rated aesthetic cafe they had saved on their map, but it was exactly the cafe they needed.
Because it offered the two things the moment required: warmth and a pause.
Right.
By surrendering to the detour, they regained control of their emotional state. They stopped measuring their physical reality against an imaginary, perfect piece of paper.
And because they successfully executed that pivot, because they stopped holding London hostage to their expectations, the city actually rewards them.
The narrative takes a beautiful turn.
It does. The rain finally slows down. They wander back out onto the street, no map, no destination, and they happen upon a quiet, warm little bookshop with narrow, winding shelves.
Think about the contrast there. It is the absolute antithesis of noisy, high-pressure train station from the morning.
It's the perfect foil. The train station demanded things from them: attention, speed, tickets, anxiety.
And the bookshop demanded absolutely nothing. It just let them exist.
And this points to a really universal truth about storytelling that the source nails perfectly. As humans, we don't actually want to hear a story about a flawless day.
No, not at all.
If you come back from a trip and tell your friends, "Oh, we caught the 9 a.m. train, the weather was 72 degrees, the museum was nice, and we came home," your friends will nod politely and their eyes will glaze over immediately.
Because there's no friction in a perfect day, and without friction, there is no narrative arc.
Exactly. We crave the wet shoes. As listeners, we want the wrong turns, the panicking digital maps, and the mild, crisp-related defeats. Because that is where the humanity lives. That is where the humor is forged.
And that storytelling instinct explains why the travelers use two very powerful specific words to describe the aftermath of the day.
Oh, right. They call the experience remarkable and worthwhile.
I want to break those down because they are doing a lot of subtle work here. Remarkable doesn't just mean a generic good.
No, to call something remarkable means it is literally worthy of being remarked upon. It is unusual or special specifically because it stands out in your memory.
The day was not remarkable because it was a flawless execution of sightseeing.
Right.
It was remarkable because, after the commotion, the cognitive lag, and the tragedy of the wet sock, they finally got a quiet walk on shining, wet pavements. They heard some mysterious street music echoing down an alley.
It felt like an enormous victory because they earned that peace through struggle.
Exactly. They survived the gauntlet, so the reward tasted sweeter.
And what about worthwhile? How does that function as a narrative tool?
Saying an experience is worthwhile is a profound act of acceptance. It means the experience justified the time, the effort, and the difficulty, even if it was miserable in the middle.
It acknowledges the struggle.
Yes. The delayed train, the hunger, the detour, all of it was worthwhile because the end result wasn't a polished, generic tourist brochure version of London. It was their version of London, a completely unique, unrepeatable day.
It belonged entirely to them. And you can feel that specific hard-won satisfaction on their journey home. The transcript describes them sitting on the train back, feeling what they call "look out the window tired."
That is easily my favorite phrase from the entire source.
It perfectly captures the universal feeling. It's not an angry, frustrated tired. It's a deep, satisfied survivor's exhaustion.
Your brain is pleasantly empty.
Yeah. The source notes there is even a person having a remarkably loud phone call in their carriage on the way back, and it doesn't even spike their heart rate. They just smile at it.
It's like, yes, one final sound effect to close out the scene.
The city couldn't hurt them anymore. They were insulated by the fact that they had already let go.
That is the armor of adaptability. When you have already abandoned the need for perfection, minor annoyances stop being threats. They just become texture in the background of your story.
So when we pull all of this together, what is the ultimate takeaway for you, the listener? Looking back at this chaotic transcript, it becomes so incredibly clear why moving beyond basic vocabulary matters.
It matters because the words we choose literally shape our memories.
How so?
Well, if you only possess basic descriptive words, you might process this memory by saying, the trip was bad, I was sad, it rained.
Which is pretty forgettable.
Exactly. But when you have the vocabulary to describe your mental state at the station as flustered, or you can capture the specific misery of a wet shoe as being drenched, or you can frame your resilience in finding that random cafe as improvising.
You take a messy, chaotic reality and package it into an engaging, triumphant narrative.
Precisely. You essentially become the hero of your own mild disaster,
Right.
rather than just remaining the victim of a bad train schedule. You take ownership of the detour.
By naming these experiences accurately, you realize that the chaos isn't the ruin of the trip. The chaos is the trip.
That is beautifully put.
Well, that brings us to the end of our analysis today. But as always, we like to leave you with a final thought to chew on long after you finish listening.
And this story raises a really important, perhaps slightly uncomfortable question for all of us.
Oh, I like the sound of this.
If our very best memories, our deepest laughs, and our most highly entertaining stories consistently come from the exact moments when our careful plans completely fall apart,
Yeah.
how much of our daily stress comes from desperately trying to avoid the exact chaos that makes life interesting in the first place?
Wow. A little something to ponder the next time you find yourself aggressively making eye contact with the delayed departure board.
Thank you so much for tuning in to the English Boost podcast. We will catch you on the next one.